I entered my sister Bea's backyard, carried a peach pie still warm from the oven. The first things I noticed were the scent of charcoal and the noise of laughter. Then I heard Bea's voice, sharp and clear through the fence. I hope she got into an accident and won't come. More laughter followed. My mother, my father, even the children. The world stopped for a second. I stood frozen. The pie trembled in my hands. The heat burned my palms. Then I smiled. I pushed the gate open and walked in, acting like nothing happened. Nobody looked at me. Nobody spoke. That day, I ceased being their joke. My name is Clara Vance. For most of my life, I believed I understood family. I was the older sister, the reliable one, the person everyone called for car repairs, overdue tuition, or mom's leaky roof. I used to think being needed meant being loved. I live alone now in a quiet area of Portland. I bought my house outright years ago. I worked in finance for 20 years, saved every cent, and took early retirement. I have no children. Instead, I poured myself into supporting the family I did have. My parents, my younger sister B, her husband Marcus, and their 2 children. 3 years ago, B and Marcus could not afford a down payment on their dream home. I immediately wrote a $4,000 check. A year later, their daughter Chloe needed braces. I covered the bill. Their son's laptop broke before school. I replaced it the next day. I viewed this as family duty, not charity. That is what family does, I kept telling myself. My parents always insisted B required more assistance. She was delicate, emotional, not as fortunate as I was. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas, they expressed pride in my strength and independence. It sounded like a compliment, but it served as their justification. A reason to give her everything, expect nothing from her, and take from me without asking. Still I complied. I rationalized the exclusive jokes and laughter as harmless. Told myself BA's digs about me playing rich aunt were just teasing. I desperately wanted to belong, even if I had to pay the price. That Saturday afternoon, I drove across town for her barbecue, just as always. It was late summer. The air felt heavy. The sky was slowly darkening. I baked my mother's peach pie recipe, the one that once gathered us when times were simpler. I hummed in the kitchen, trying to believe we were still that family. I parked near their house, the one I had helped them purchase. Kids' laughter drifted over the fence. I convinced myself the recent emotional distance was just my imagination. I balanced the pie, walked the narrow path, and reached for the gate handle. That is when I heard my name. That is when everything I believed about my family shattered. I heard every word through the fence. BA's voice was bright and careless, like discussing trivial matters. I hope she got into an accident and won't come, she said, laughing between syllables. For a moment, I doubted my hearing. Then came the others. Mom's soft giggle, Dad's deep chuckle, even Chloe's high-pitched laugh. It wasn't one person being cruel. It was all of them. I froze. My grip tightened on the glass dish until it groaned. I wanted to turn and leave, but my body wouldn't move. My entire life, I had taught myself to remain calm, to simplify things for everyone else. So I inhaled deeply. I pushed the gate open and stepped inside. The smell of grilled meat hit me. The sun reflected off the aluminum foil trays. B stood by the grill, tongs in one hand and a beer in the other. When she saw me, her smile evaporated. She looked startled. "Oh, you made it," she said. "I did," I responded. My voice sounded foreign, distant. I placed the pie on the picnic table, the one covered by the floral cloth I gifted her last Christmas. No one said thank you. No one even acknowledged the pie. I found a folding chair at the end of the table, far from their laughter, and sat down. The conversation continued as though I were invisible. Stories about jobs, children, and neighbors. My parents nodded, smiled, and clinked glasses. I watched them, realizing I had become background noise, not family. At one point, Chloe ran past me. Her elbow brushed my arm. She didn't apologize. I looked toward B. She looked right through me. They ate everything. The ribs, the salads, the pie. No comments about the taste. No thanks. I stayed for 3 hours. I smiled when they smiled. I laughed softly when they laughed. Pretending was easier than absorbing the sheer weight of it. But every laugh felt like a stab. When the plates were empty, I quietly collected them, wiped down the tables, and tossed the trash. B never once looked up. When the final bag hit the bin, I slipped away without a goodbye. Driving home, I could still hear their laughter. That single sentence, "I hoped she got into an accident," kept repeating, matching my pulse. I had funded that house, paid for those smiles, financed the very backyard where they wished for my demise. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat silently until the headlights faded. Then I whispered into the empty car, "They wanted an accident. They will receive one." The following morning, the house was quiet. Only the coffee maker hummed. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into the rising steam. I felt nothing, no anger, no grief, just a strange stillness. The peace that arrives when you abandon the hope for an apology. A folder lay on the table. Inside were documents I hadn't reviewed in years. Insurance policies, bank statements, my will. I had meant to update them, but life and family always intervened. I opened it slowly, reading page by page. BEA's name was prominent. Power of attorney, joint access to my primary account, primary life insurance beneficiary. My parents were listed as secondary heirs. The people who laughed at the thought of my death were the same people who stood to gain the most from it. I couldn't inhale for a long minute. Then, a line snapped into place inside me. A clean, sharp divide between what was and what would be. I grabbed my phone and called Jeremy Shaw, my old attorney. "Jeremy, it's Clara. I need to change everything today." His tone shifted immediately. "Be here at 10. Bring your documents." I spent the next 2 hours sorting papers. Each signature, each name, felt like evidence in a lawsuit I hadn't realized I was fighting. I left the house without finishing my coffee. Jeremy's office smelled of disinfectant and leather. He greeted me with the same calm he displayed during my retirement years ago. "What happened?" he inquired. "Family," I replied simply. "That's explanation enough." He reviewed each page. "You wish to revoke BEA's power of attorney?" "Yes." "And remove her as your primary heir?" "Absolutely." He slid new forms across the desk. "Let's make this binding." By noon, my entire financial life was restructured. No more shared accounts. No more access. No one could touch a cent without my permission. Driving home, a weight began to lift from my chest. It wasn't immediate, but it was substantial. I pulled into my driveway, lowered the window, and took the first genuinely deep breath in months. Then I called Patricia, the bank manager. "I need to remove an authorized user," I stated. "Name Beatrice Ward." Silence on the line. "We will process that immediately." I hung up and smiled for the first time since the barbecue. They wished I was gone. Now legally, I was gone from their finances. By sunset, everything was in motion. Accounts reset, passwords changed. Every access point into my life was now legally locked. The next day, I hired a locksmith. He arrived in a blue van. Asked if I was moving out or locking someone out. "Both," I told him. He chuckled, unaware how accurate he was. By mid-afternoon, both the front and back doors had new locks installed. He handed me the fresh keys. I held them like proof of my newfound freedom. That evening, my phone rang. It was B. I let it ring until it stopped. Then it rang again. Mom. Then Dad. Then B again. Finally, I answered. "What the hell is going on?" she snapped. "My card was declined at Walmart. I couldn't buy school supplies." "You might check whose money you were trying to spend," I said calmly. "Excuse me." "I heard what you said, B, at the barbecue." A silent pause. Her voice switched to fake laughter. "Oh, come on. You're not serious. It was just a joke." "I heard everyone laugh," I stated, including our parents. "You are being dramatic." "No," I corrected, lowering my voice. "I am being done." I hung up the phone. The next 30 minutes were a torrent of missed calls. "Mom, Dad, Marcus." Each voicemail was more frantic than the last. Lectures about forgiveness, family unity, and not taking things personally. I ignored them all. That night, I opened a bottle of wine. I pulled out the envelope Jeremy gave me. My new will, finalized and notarized. BEA's name was absent. So was everyone else's. The house, the money, the investments. Everything was designated for a charitable trust called the Bright Future Fund. When the wine was finished, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, a car pulled up outside my house. I peeked through the curtains. B and Marcus. They marched straight to the door, pounding hard, like police. Clara, open this damn door. We need to talk. I stayed silent. B continued shouting. You changed the locks? Are you insane? Then I heard the metal scrape of her old key trying to turn the new mechanism. Click. Nothing. She tried again. I smiled slightly. After a few more minutes of shouting, I turned on the TV. I raised the volume until a cooking show's sounds drowned out their rage. Sizzling pans perfectly masked their fury. Eventually, they surrendered and left. But I wasn't finished. Later that week, I met with the real estate agent, Mike. I am ready to sell, I told him. And I require my family to remain uninformed until the deal is closed. He nodded. Discretion. I understand. Within 2 weeks, I sold my house and relocated to a modest apartment near Washington Park. The walls were blank, the air smelled of fresh paint. For the first time, this space felt truly mine. A few days after moving, my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello, Aunt Clara. It was Chloe. Her voice was small and anxious. Mom and Dad said you've gone crazy, she said. What actually happened? I paused, then asked. Do you recall what your mom said at the barbecue? A pause. When she said she hoped you got into an accident. Yes. She remained quiet for a moment. I laughed too, she whispered. I didn't mean to. I just laughed because everyone else was doing it. I closed my eyes. You were 14. You didn't know better. I am sorry, Aunt Clara. Truly sorry. I believed her. There was a quality in her voice that the others lacked, shame. Humanity. Come by tomorrow, I said softly. We will talk. The next afternoon she arrived. Her hands shook as she apologized again. I listened patiently. I did not forgive her immediately, but I told her I loved her anyway. When she departed, I realized she was the only one in the family worth retaining. Weeks became months. My phone stopped ringing. But one afternoon, I initiated a call myself. To the Bright Future Fund. I would like to make a donation, I told them. $100,000. The woman on the line gasped. Are you absolutely sure? Yes, I confirmed. I was saving it for someone's birthday. But I have changed my plans. That night, I sat by my window. I watched the city lights shimmer on the water. They had wanted me gone. They never anticipated that I would take their access to me with me. Their laughter had been the accident, and I was the survivor who successfully walked away from the wreckage. 6 months passed before I received any further communication from them. By then, I was living a new life. Smaller, calmer, enjoying a peace I never knew existed. My apartment near Washington Park was bright every morning. That light felt like a fresh start. I joined a yoga class. I volunteered twice a week at the Bright Future Fund. My weekends were dedicated to painting or walking by the water. I stopped checking over my shoulder. Then one afternoon, I was finishing a volunteer shift. My phone buzzed. A message from Chloe. Mom had to take a second job. The text read, Dad is working nights now. Things are really difficult. I stared at the screen, unsure what my feeling was. Pity? Justice? Nothing felt quite right. Perhaps it was simply peace. I texted back. I'm sorry to hear that, sweetheart. I hope they find a way to figure things out. We met for coffee a week later. Chloe looked tired, but she seemed calmer. She updated me on school, college applications, and her new part-time job. I handed her an envelope. What is this? She asked. Something to help you establish a fresh start, I replied. Inside the envelope was a check for $5,000. Her eyes filled with tears. Aunt Clara, I don't know what to say. Say you will use it for something entirely your own, I instructed her. Not for your parents. Not for anyone else. She nodded solemnly. I promise I will. After she left, I stayed at the cafe window. I watched her walk across the street. For the first time, I didn't feel like someone who had lost her family. I felt like someone who had finally discovered herself. Later that evening, another email arrived, this time from my parents. It was extensive and cold. They wrote that I had brought disgrace upon the family name. They expressed shame regarding my cruelty. I did not finish reading the message. I simply hit the delete button. Outside, the city was quiet. The lights reflected off the lake. They looked like 1,000 small promises I had made to myself and finally honored. They had wished for an accident. They received one. Not one involving metal or blood, but one of silence and legal paperwork. And I was the one left standing. It has been 3 years since that day in my sister's backyard. Sometimes, walking by the lake at sunset, I still recall the sound of their laughter. That sharp, careless noise used to cut right through me. It doesn't hurt anymore. It only serves as a reminder of how far I have come. I used to believe that family was something you had to protect relentlessly. But the truth I learned is that some families do not require protection. They require distance. I constructed my peace from silence, from choosing not to answer them, and choosing not to explain myself. In that quiet space, I finally heard my own voice again. Now, when people at the Bright Future Fund ask why I contribute so heavily, I just offer a smile, because I know firsthand what it means to assist the wrong individuals, and how profoundly liberating it feels to finally assist the right ones. If this story has resonated with you, share your reflections below. If you have ever been forced to draw that definitive boundary with those closest to you, tell me how it changed your life. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply living a better life without them. You are not weak, you are healing.